we are going to see about United Nations important 6 bodies. Before getting into the video, hit that subscribe button to get latest episodes alerts from YouTube.
Let's look at the main bodies now. The United Nations main bodies are established by the UN Charter. Underneath, these bodies are many subsidiary organizations. Number 1 in the list is the General Assembly. The General Assembly is the main deliberative organ of the United Nations. It is composed of representatives of all member countries, each of which has one vote. Decisions on important questions such as those on peace and security, admission of new members and budgetary matters require a 2/3 majority. Decision on other questions are by simple majority, that is 50% plus. There are various subsidiary organs within the General Assembly. These include the Disarmament Commission, the Peace Building Commission, and the Human Rights Council. The second body is Security Council. The Security Council has primary responsibility for the maintenance of international peace and security. It is so organized as to be able to function continuously, and a representative of each of its members must be present at all times at United Nations headquarters. The presidency of the Council rotates monthly according to the English alphabetical listing of its member countries. The Security Council's functions and powers are to maintain international peace and security in accordance with the principles and purposes of the United Nations, to investigate any dispute or situation which might lead to international friction, to recommend methods of adjusting such disputes or the terms of settlement, to formulate plans for the establishment of a system to regulate on armaments, to determine the existence of a threat to the peace or act of aggression and to recommend what action should be taken, to call on members to apply economic sanctions and other measures not involving the use of force to prevent or stop aggression, to take military action against an aggressor, to recommend the admission of new members, to exercise the trusteeship functions of the United Nations in strategic areas, and last, to recommend to the General Assembly the appointment of Secretary General and together with the Assembly to elect the judges of the International Court of Justice. There are 5 permanent members of the Security Council: China, France, the Russian Federation, the United Kingdom, and the United States. There are 10 non-permanent members who serve 2-year terms and are elected by the General Assembly in regional groups to ensure that each region is represented. There is much criticism that the permanent 5 members represent the most powerful countries from 1945 rather than today, and that they do not represent the world geographically. Next body is Secretary General. Equal parts diplomat and advocate, civil servant and CEO, the Secretary General is a symbol of United Nations ideals and a spokesman for the interest of the world's people, in particular the poor and vulnerable among them. The current Secretary General and the 10th occupant of the post, Mr. Antonio Guterres of Portugal, who took office on 1st January 2017. The Secretary General is appointed by the General Assembly on the recommendation of the Security Council. The Secretary General's selection is therefore subject to the veto of any of the 5 permanent members of the Security Council. The Charter describes the Secretary General as Chief Administrative Officer of the organization, who shall act in that capacity and perform such other functions as are entrusted to him or her by the Security Council or General Assembly, Economic and Social Council, and other United Nations organs. The Charter also empowers the Secretary General to bring to the attention of the Security Council any matter which is in opinion may threaten the maintenance of international peace and security. These guidelines both define the powers of the office and grant it considerable scope for action. The Secretary General would fail if he did not take any careful account of the concerns of member countries, but he must also uphold the values and moral authority of the United Nations and speak and act for peace, even at the risk from time to time of challenging or disagreeing with those same member countries. Each year, the Secretary General issues a report on the work of the United Nations that appraises its activities and outlines future priorities. The Secretary General is also chairman of the Administrative Committee on Coordination, which is otherwise known as ACC, which brings together the executive heads of all UN funds, programs, and specialized agencies twice a year in order to further coordination and cooperation in the entire range of substantive and management issues facing the United Nations system. One of the most vital roles played by the Secretary General is the use of its good officers, steps taken publicly and in private, drawing upon its independence, impartiality, and integrity to prevent international disputes from arising, escalating, or spreading. The next body is the Secretariat. This is an international staff working in duty stations around the world that carry out diverse day-to-day work of the organization. It services the other principal organs of the United Nations and administers the programs and policies laid down by them. The duties carried out by the Secretariat are as varied as the problems dealt with by the United Nations. These range from administering peacekeeping operations to mediating international disputes, from surveying economic and social trends and problems to preparing studies on human rights and sustainable development. Secretariat staff also inform the world's communications media about the work of the United Nations, organize international conferences and issues of worldwide concern, and interpret speeches and translate documents into the organization's official languages. The next body is Economic and Social Council, known as ECOSOC. The Economic and Social Council is the principal body coordinating the economic and social work of the United Nations and its operational arms. It is serviced by the Department of Economic and Social Affairs. The entire family of the United Nations organizations work for economic, social, and sustainable development of the world. Many UN agencies and programs work closely with ECOSOC. The agencies are all independent organizations with their own member countries and budgets. Many UN programs were created by the General Assembly and work closely with ECOSOC but report to the General Assembly and are the Security Council. The Council's 54-member governments are elected by the General Assembly for overlapping 3-year terms. Seats on the Council are allotted based on geographical representation, with 14 allotted to African countries, 11 to Asian countries, 6 to Eastern European countries, 10 to Latin American and Caribbean countries, and 13 to Western European and other countries. The work of ECOSOC is carried out through functional and regional commissions. Functional commissions address specific topics, whereas regional commissions address issues specific to certain geographical areas. Commissions have working groups and other sections to research, discuss, and investigate problems. These are made up of member countries' representatives but drawn independent experts for information and advice. The last one in the list of main bodies is International Court of Justice, known as ICJ. The ICJ is not the same as International Criminal Court (ICC). The International Criminal Court hears cases against individuals accused of genocide, crimes against humanity, and war crimes. But the ICJ hears only disputes between countries. The ICJ is the principal judicial organ of the United Nations. It was established in June 1945 by the Charter of the United Nations and began working April 1946. The seat of the court is at the Peace Palace in The Hague, Netherlands. Of the 6 principal organs of the United Nations, it is the only one not located in New York. The court's role is to settle, in accordance with international law, legal disputes submitted to it by countries and to give advisory opinions on legal questions referred to it by authorized United Nations organs and specialized agencies. For information on cases currently before the court, you can visit the United Nations website and get to know those details. The court is composed of 15 judges who are elected for terms of office of 9 years by the United Nations General Assembly and the Security Council. It is assisted by a registry, its administrative organ. The Trusteeship Council was established in 1945 by the UN Charter to provide international supervision for 11 trust territories placed under the administration of 7 member countries and ensure that adequate steps were taken to prepare the territories for self-government and independence. By 1994, all trust territories had attained self-government and independence, so its work got completed. The Council has amended its rules of procedure to meet as and where occasion may require. With this, we have come to the end of this session on United Nations.